What does it feel like to lose the only room in your life that ever made sense? That is the question sitting underneath everything in this reading, and I am not asking it rhetorically. I am asking it because someone right now, today, is actually living inside the answer. Okay, Virgo, so let's not ease into this gently. Let's go straight to the center of it. I see a chest rising and falling too fast. Not panic exactly, something quieter and more exhausting than panic. The kind of breath a body takes when it has been carrying tension for so long that even rest does not fully release it anymore. This person has not slept properly in longer than they would admit out loud to anyone who asked. And every time their mind goes quiet enough to drift, it drifts toward you. Not in a wistful, soft focus way, sharply, suddenly, like a hand closing around something before the mind has caught up to what it grabbed. They will be in the middle of something ordinary, something completely unrelated to you, and then your name surfaces, your face surfaces, the sound of your voice surfaces, uninvited and total. They have stopped being able to control when this happens. That loss of control terrifies them more than they are letting on, even to themselves. Let me show you the wreckage they think they are standing in. A house with the furniture still arranged the way it always was, except something essential has been removed from every room, not visibly. Nothing looks obviously wrong if you walked through it as a stranger. But this person knows. They feel the absence in the specific gravity of empty chairs, in silence where a particular laugh used to land, in the wrongness of a home that still has all its walls but none of its warmth. That is what losing you looks like from inside their nervous system. Not dramatic collapse, something slower and stranger, the sense of having all the pieces of a life still technically present while the thing that made those pieces cohere into something livable has quietly disappeared. I want you to understand something important here. This is not exaggeration designed to win you back through guilt. This is an accurate description of what abandonment feels like when the person doing the leaving finally stops numbing themselves to what they actually did. A second image is forming, and it is harder to look at than the first. I see hands pressed flat against a closed door, not knocking, just resting there, as though the warmth on the other side might somehow be felt through solid wood if they pressed hard enough and waited long enough. This person has stopped trying to force their way back in. What remains is something quieter and more painful than desperation, a kind of waiting that has no guarantee attached to it. They know, somewhere honest inside themselves, that nothing entitles them to your forgiveness or your attention or your return. And still they stand there, hand against the door, not because they expect it to open, because standing anywhere else feels unbearable. I want to talk about everything in the title of this reading, because the word matters. Everything is a large claim. It suggests not a single loss, but a collapse, the sense that one absence has somehow toppled an entire structure that used to feel stable. People do not use that word casually, even in their own private thoughts. When someone's internal language escalates to everything, it usually means the loss has started touching parts of their identity they did not realize were connected to you. Their sense of being capable, their sense of being someone worth choosing, their belief that effort and good intentions are usually enough to keep something important intact. All of that cracked at the same time you walked away or were pushed away or simply stopped being reachable in the way you used to be reachable. That is a heavier collapse than missing a person. That is someone confronting the architecture of their own choices and discovering it was built on something far more fragile than they assumed. There is movement now in the imagery, and it shifts the texture slightly. A figure walking through a space that used to be familiar, touching surfaces almost absent-mindedly, The way people touch objects when they are trying to anchor themselves to something solid while their internal world feels unstable. They are searching for evidence, proof that what existed between you was real, was not exaggerated by hindsight or distorted by grief into something larger than it actually was. And every object they touch, every memory that surfaces unbidden, confirms the same thing over and over. It was real. You were never the smaller, manageable version of what they are now mourning. You were always exactly this significant. They simply were not paying close enough attention while they had the chance to notice. I want to ask you something, and you do not need to answer it out loud or even fully to yourself yet. Do you recognize any of this in how things actually unfolded between you? Not the parts you have replayed defensively, justifying your own choices to yourself in the privacy of your own head, the quieter parts, the moments where you sense something shifting in them even before either of you said it directly. If something here matches what you already suspected, leave a word below. Sometimes confirmation from outside ourselves is the only thing that makes an internal suspicion feel solid enough to trust. Let me describe the weight more precisely, because vague descriptions of suffering do not actually serve you here. I see a stone, not large, fitting easily into a closed fist, but dense beyond what its size would suggest. This person carries it everywhere now. In meetings, in conversations with people who have no idea what is sitting inside their chest, in the ordinary errands and obligations that make up a regular week. The stone does not get lighter with distraction. It only gets heavier with time spent away from you, because every day adds another layer of confirmation that the distance is real and is not closing on its own. That is the particular cruelty of regret without resolution. It compounds. It does not fade the way ordinary disappointment fades. It accumulates the way debt accumulates until the person carrying it can no longer pretend the weight is manageable. I see something starting to crack open the stillness around this person now. A decision forming slow and reluctant, the way decisions form in people who are not naturally impulsive but who have finally run out of other options to try. The decision is not loud. It does not arrive with confidence. It arrives the way most real decisions actually arrive in real life. Quiet, uncertain, made anyway despite the uncertainty, because staying frozen has become worse than the risk of moving. They are going to reach toward you. Maybe not today, maybe not in the next few hours, but the shape of that reaching is already forming in their mind, rehearsed silently, over and over. The way people rehearse words they are terrified will not land the way they hope. I want to be careful here, because this reading is not meant to pressure you into anything. Someone losing everything because of your absence does not automatically mean their absence deserves to end. Pain is not the same thing as readiness. A person can genuinely grieve what they lost and still not have done the actual work required to be worth letting back in. What I am describing to you is the internal state they are in. What you do with that information, whether it changes anything for you at all, whether it simply gives you clarity about something you already suspected, is entirely separate from whether you owe them anything in response. You do not owe anyone access to you simply because losing you finally taught them what they had. The final image is quiet, almost unremarkable, and that is exactly what makes it land. A single light left on in an otherwise dark house, visible from outside, the way certain windows stay lit long after everyone else on a street has gone to sleep. Someone awake inside, alone, thinking the same thought they have been thinking for longer than feels survivable, wishing they had done things differently. That light is the most honest image in this entire reading. No performance, no audience, just someone sitting with the consequences of choices that cannot be unmade, only learned from if they are capable of learning at all. Whether they are capable of that is something only time will actually prove. If any part of this matched something already living in your chest, say so below. I read it. That's where we leave it today.